Walmart is supposed to be ordinary. Bright lights, long aisles, familiar faces pushing carts. But in small towns, when the parking lot empties and the store stays open a little too late, that sense of normal can disappear fast. Tonight on Dark Hours, we're sharing 4 small-town Walmart horror stories. True accounts from quiet towns where late-night shopping turned into something deeply unsettling. If you're new here, subscribe to Dark Hours for true horror and real stories hidden in everyday places. And tell me in the comments, are you watching this from a small town or a big city tonight? Now dim the lights, and let's begin. My name is Erica, and I thought the worst part of overnight security at Walmart would be dealing with drunk parking lot sleepers. I'd been doing security work for 6 years, bouncing between malls and office buildings, but the Walmart gig in rural Pennsylvania was supposed to be easy money. The store sat off Highway 22, surrounded by empty fields and a cracked parking lot that could fit 300 cars but rarely held more than 20, even during business hours. My shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Most of that time I'd sit in the security office watching camera feeds, do 3 or 4 walking patrols around the building's perimeter, and chase off the occasional teens trying to smoke weed behind the garden center. Simple. Boring. Safe. The security office was a windowless room near the back of the store, filled with monitors showing feeds from 42 cameras positioned throughout the building and parking lot. My supervisor, Dale, was a retired cop who'd gained about 80 pounds since leaving the force. He worked the evening shift and would brief me during the overlap hour before he left. Quiet night, he told me on my 3rd week. Had 2 shoplifters earlier, but they left before the cops showed. Parking lot's clear. You shouldn't have any issues. Any areas I should focus on? I asked. He pointed at one of the monitors, showing the far end of the parking lot, where the lights were spaced farther apart and shadows pooled between the lampposts. We've had some complaints about that corner. People say they feel weird parking there, like they're being watched. Has anything actually happened? Not that we can prove, just, feelings. You know how people are. I nodded. I did know. People were scared of everything, especially at night in empty parking lots. Dale left at midnight, and I settled into my routine. I watched the monitors, scrolled through my phone, ate the sandwich I'd brought. Around 1 a.m., I did my first patrol. The night was cold and clear, stars bright above the empty fields. My breath fogged as I walked the building's perimeter, checking doors, scanning the parking lot. A few cars sat scattered near the entrance. Overnight stalkers, probably. The far end, where Dale had mentioned complaints, was completely empty. I walked toward it anyway, boots crunching on loose gravel at the lot's edge. The lights were dimmer here, the lampposts older and farther apart. Shadows stretched along between them, and I could hear the wind moving through the dead cornfields beyond the property line. It did feel different here, more isolated, though I couldn't articulate why. I was about to turn back when I noticed the shopping cart. It sat perfectly centered in a parking space about 60 feet away. The cart was upright, not tipped or abandoned casually, but positioned deliberately, as if someone had rolled it there and left it standing. I walked over, planning to wheel it back to the cart return. As I got closer, I saw what was inside. A child's jacket, small, pink, with cartoon characters on it. It was laid flat in the basket, arms spread out, like it was being displayed. I stopped walking. Something about the way it was arranged felt wrong. Too careful, too intentional. I pulled out my radio. "Dale, you still on?" Static, then his voice. "Yeah, I'm in the parking lot about to head out. What's up?" "Did you see anyone leave a cart in the far section? There's a kid's jacket in it." Pause. "No. Lot was empty when I checked at 11:30. You want me to come look?" "No, it's fine. Probably just lost and found." "I'll bring it in." I picked up the jacket. It was clean, recently washed, and small, maybe sized for a 5 or 6-year-old. There was no name tag inside. I folded it over my arm and brought the cart back to the return, then headed inside to log the jacket in lost and found. The rest of the night passed without incident, but the next night the cart was back. Same spot, same parking space, upright and centered. This time there was a different jacket inside, blue, slightly larger, same careful arrangement. I radioed Dale again during the overlap hour. "Did you see anyone mess with the carts in the back lot?" "No." "Why?" "There's another cart out there, another jacket inside." His voice got serious. "Same spot as last night?" "Exactly the same." "That's weird. Check the cameras. Maybe we caught something." I spent an hour reviewing footage from the parking lot cameras. The one covering that section showed the cart appearing at 11:47 p.m., just after Dale had left and before I'd gone on my first patrol. But the footage was wrong. One frame, the space was empty. The next frame, the cart was there, fully formed, as if it had been cut and pasted into reality. No person, no movement, just an empty space, then a cart. I rewound and watched again. Same thing. One frame empty, next frame full. "That's a glitch," Dale said when I showed him. "Camera lag or something. Happens sometimes with these old systems. Have you ever seen it happen like this?" He frowned at the screen. "No, but there's a logical explanation. Someone pushed it there and the camera skipped frames. Digital systems do that." I wanted to believe him. The third night, there were 3 carts. All in a row, evenly spaced, each containing a child's jacket arranged in that same precise way. I stood in the parking lot at 2 a.m., staring at them. The wind had picked up, and the carts rattled slightly, metal creaking. I checked the camera footage again. Same impossible appearance, empty frames, then suddenly full. But this time, I noticed something else. In the frame before the carts appeared, there was a shadow at the edge of the camera's view, just visible at the border of the lot, where the light faded into the dark fields. The shadow was tall, very tall, and it didn't match anything physical in the area. No lamppost, no tree, no structure. It was just there, at the edge, like something standing in the fields. The next frame, the shadow was gone, and the carts were in place. I felt cold that had nothing to do with the weather. I didn't tell Dale. I knew how it would sound. Instead, I started doing extra patrols, focusing on that corner of the lot. I needed to catch whoever was doing this, because it had to be a person. It had to be. On the 4th night, I stayed in my car at the far end of the lot during my patrol, watching the empty spaces where the carts had appeared. It was 11:52 p.m. The parking lot was silent except for the wind. I kept my eyes on that section, refusing to blink. At 11:56, I saw movement, not in the lot, but in the field beyond it. Something was walking along the edge of the property, just outside the reach of the lights. Tall, maybe 7 feet, moving with a strange, uneven gait. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of my car. "Hey, this is private property." The figure stopped. It stood there, just beyond the light, a dark silhouette against darker fields. I took a step forward, raising my flashlight. That's when I heard it. A child's voice, singing softly. The tune was familiar, a lullaby maybe, but wrong somehow. Off-key, the words were unclear. The singing came from where the figure stood. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shakier than I wanted. The figure didn't respond. The singing continued, quiet and eerie. I should have gone back to my car, should have called the police. Instead, I walked forward, flashlight raised, until I reached the edge of the parking lot. The figure was gone, but 4 shopping carts now sat in perfect alignment, each containing a small jacket. The singing had stopped. I spun around, scanning the darkness, my flashlight beam cutting through the night. Nothing. Empty fields in every direction. I ran back to my car, hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. I spent the rest of the shift in the security office, watching the monitors. At 3:17 a.m., every camera feed went black for exactly 6 seconds. When they came back, I saw myself on one of the monitors. I was standing in the parking lot, in that far corner, surrounded by shopping carts. But I was in the office. I hadn't left. I watched myself on the screen, watched this other version of me turn slowly, looking at each cart, then walk out of frame toward the fields. My radio crackled. A child's voice came through, singing that same off-key lullaby. I threw the radio across the room. I quit the next morning. Didn't even finish my shift, just walked out at 6 a.m. and never went back. 2 weeks later, I saw a news article. A body had been found in the fields behind that Walmart. A woman. She'd been missing for 8 days. They said she'd been a security guard at the store. Her name was Erica. I still don't know who I am. My name is Jason, and I thought working the receiving dock at Walmart would be the easiest job I'd ever had. I was wrong about a lot of things. The store was in a small town in Missouri, one of those places where the Walmart is the only thing open past 9 p.m. I'd moved there for a fresh start after my divorce, and the overnight receiving position paid better than anything else I could find. My job was simple. When delivery trucks arrived between midnight and 5 a.m., I'd open the receiving door, check the invoices, and help unload the freight. Between deliveries, I'd organize the stockroom, break down cardboard, and generally stay busy. The receiving area was at the back of the store, accessed through a long concrete hallway that connected to the main floor. The dock itself was a large space with metal roller doors, concrete floors, and harsh fluorescent lighting that buzzed constantly. I worked alone. The overnight manager, Kevin, would check in with me once or twice per shift, but mostly I was isolated back there, which suited me fine. The first few weeks were uneventful. Trucks would arrive, I'd unload them, and the hours would pass. It was physical work, but mindless. I'd listen to music and zone out. Then I started noticing the knocking. It would happen between deliveries, when I was alone in the receiving area. 3 knocks, always the same rhythm, coming from the main receiving door, the big metal roller door that faced the outside loading area. The first time I assumed it was a driver arriving early. I hit the button to open the door. Nobody there. Just the empty loading area, dimly lit by a single floodlight, and beyond that, darkness. I closed the door and went back to breaking down boxes. 5 minutes later, knock, knock, knock. I opened the door again. Still nothing. This happened 3 more times that night. Always the same pattern, always nobody there. I mentioned it to Kevin during his check-in. Probably the door settling, he said. The metal expands and contracts with temperature changes, makes all kinds of noise. That made sense. I accepted it. But the knocking continued every night, and it didn't sound like settling metal. It sounded exactly like knuckles on a door, deliberate and rhythmic. I started ignoring it. Then, one night during my 3rd week, the knocking changed. It came from inside the receiving area. I was organizing pallets when I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. Coming from the stockroom door, the one that led to the main hallway and the store beyond. I walked over and opened it. The hallway was empty. Fluorescent lights stretched into the distance, leading to the darkened main floor. "Hello?" my voice echoed. I closed the door. 10 seconds later, knock, knock, knock. From the same door. I opened it immediately this time, fast enough that nobody could have walked away. The hallway was still empty. My skin prickled. I left the door open and went back to work, glancing at it every few seconds. If someone was messing with me, I'd see them approach. But the hallway remained empty. At 2:47 a.m., a truck arrived, a legitimate delivery from the distribution center. I was grateful for the distraction. The driver was a guy named Carl I'd met a few times before. Big dude, friendly, always made small talk while I scanned invoices. "You look spooked," he said as we unloaded boxes. "Just tired. This place gets to people. I've been doing this route for 5 years, and every overnight receiver eventually looks like you do right now." "What do you mean?" He set down a box and looked at me seriously. "They never last more than a few months. You're the 4th person they've had in this position since I started this route." "Why don't they last?" He shrugged. "They don't say. They just quit, usually suddenly. One guy didn't even give notice, just walked out mid-shift and never came back." "When was that?" "Maybe 8 months ago." We finished unloading in silence. After Carl left, I sat in the empty receiving area, listening to the buzz of lights. I should have quit right then, but I needed the money. The next night I found the drawings. I was moving old pallets in the stockroom when I noticed markings on the concrete wall, hidden behind a stack of boxes. Someone had drawn on the wall with permanent marker, not graffiti, diagrams, dozens of them covering a 6-foot section of wall. They were all drawings of the receiving area, sketched from different angles, simple but detailed. The roller door, the stockroom entrance, the pallets, the loading dock. In each drawing, a figure stood in the same spot, near the main receiving door. The figure was just a stick figure, but it was drawn in every single diagram, always in the exact same position. Below the drawings, someone had written in shaky handwriting, "It knocks until you answer." I stared at those words for a long time. The previous receiver had made these drawings. Had to be. They'd been documenting something, tracking something. I pulled out my phone and took pictures of the wall, then moved the boxes back in front of it. That night, at 3:33 a.m., the main receiving door opened by itself. I was across the room, nowhere near the control button, when I heard the mechanical grinding of the door rolling up. I spun around. The door rose slowly, revealing the dark loading area beyond. And standing in that darkness, just beyond the reach of the light, was a figure. Tall. Impossibly tall, standing completely still. I couldn't make out details, just a dark silhouette against darker night. My hand found the door control. I slammed the button. The door rolled down. I stood there, heart hammering, staring at the closed door. 3 seconds of silence. Then, knock, knock, knock. I didn't open it. The knocking continued, patient, rhythmic, never stopping. I backed away from the door, pulled out my phone, and called Kevin. "There's someone outside the receiving door," I said when he answered. "Did they identify themselves as a driver?" "No, I don't think it's a driver. I'll come check it out." He arrived 5 minutes later, walking down the hallway from the main store. The knocking had stopped by then. "Show me," he said. I hit the button. The door rolled up. The loading area was empty. Kevin walked out onto the dock, looked around, came back inside. "Nothing there," he said. "Probably kids messing around." "Kevin, the door opened by itself, and there was someone standing out there." He gave me a look, the kind of look you give someone you think might be cracking up. "The door controls malfunction sometimes, electrical issues. I'll put in a maintenance request." After he left, I sat in the corner of the receiving area, as far from the door as I could get. At 4:12 a.m., I heard my name. "Jason." Quiet, from just outside the door. My voice, my exact voice, calling my own name. I didn't respond. I grabbed my keys and my jacket and walked straight out through the stockroom, through the hallway, through the main store, and out the front entrance. I sat in my car until sunrise. I tried to quit the next day, but Kevin talked me into staying, said I'd lose my benefits if I didn't give 2 weeks' notice, said it was just stress, just adjustment to overnight work. I agreed to finish the week. Last night was my final shift. I didn't go into the receiving area. I stayed in the main store, pretending to organize shelves, waiting for 7 a.m. At 3:33 a.m., every phone in the store started ringing simultaneously. The store phones, the intercoms, everything. I picked up the nearest one. My own voice answered. "Why won't you open the door, Jason?" I hung up. The phones kept ringing. I walked to the front of the store and sat by the entrance, watching the parking lot, waiting for daylight. When Kevin arrived at 6:30 for the morning shift change, he found me there. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm done," I said. "I'm not coming back." He nodded slowly. "I'll process your resignation." As I walked to my car, I glanced back at the building. In the window of the receiving area, the small window in the stockroom door, I could see a figure standing, tall, dark, motionless, watching me leave. I don't know what works the receiving dock now. I don't want to know. My name is Aisha, and I thought the strangest part about working customer service at Walmart would be dealing with return scammers. I'd been at the Raleigh location for 6 months, working the service desk during closing shifts. It was standard retail hell, angry customers, complicated returns, and the constant smell of popcorn from the nearby concession stand. But the people I dealt with were normal, frustrating, yes, but normal, until I met the woman in the red coat. It was a Tuesday night in November, about 40 minutes before the store closed at 11. I was processing returns, half watching the clock when she approached my counter. She was maybe 50, average height, with graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore a long red winter coat, even though it wasn't particularly cold inside the store. "I need to make a return," she said. Her voice was flat, emotionless. "Sure, do you have your receipt?" She placed an item on the counter, a picture frame, simple, wooden, the kind we sold for $12 in the home section. "Receipt?" I asked again. She just stared at me. I waited. Sometimes customers needed a minute to dig through purses or pockets, but she didn't move. She just stood there, staring, her hands resting on the counter beside the picture frame. "Ma'am, I'll need a receipt for the return." "I need to return this," she repeated, same flat tone. I felt a small flutter of irritation. "I understand, but without a receipt, I can only offer store credit, and I'll need to see your ID." She didn't respond, didn't reach for a wallet or purse. She just kept staring. I glanced around, hoping another customer might interrupt and give me a reason to step away, but the service desk area was empty. "Ma'am, if you don't have ID, I can't process this." She blinked, the first movement she'd made since approaching the counter. "I need to return this," she said again. Same words, same inflection, like a recording. A chill ran through me. "I'm sorry, but I need to help other customers. If you can't provide ID, I can't." "I'll wait," she said. And she stepped to the side, moving to the end of the counter, and just stood there. I processed 2 more returns from other customers, all while feeling her eyes on me. She never moved, never looked away, just stood at the end of the counter with that picture frame in her hands. When the store announced the 10-minute closing warning, I approached her again. "Ma'am, we're closing soon. If you'd like to come back tomorrow." "I need to return this." I felt my patience evaporate. "I've explained the policy. Without ID, I can't help you. You'll need to leave now, we're closing. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked away, still carrying the picture frame. I watched her disappear into the darkened aisles toward the back of the store. At 11, we locked the front doors. I helped the last few customers check out, then started closing down my register. That's when I saw her again. She was standing near the pharmacy section, maybe 80 feet away, facing my direction, just standing there, holding the picture frame. I froze. "Hey ma'am," I called out. "Store's closed. You need to leave." She didn't move. I radioed for Thomas, the closing manager. "Thomas, I've got a customer who won't leave. She's near the pharmacy." His voice crackled back. "On my way." I kept my eyes on her while I waited. She never moved, never shifted her weight. Just stood there in the fluorescent light, holding that frame. Thomas arrived, a big guy with a friendly demeanor that usually diffused situations easily. "I'll handle it," he said. We walked toward her together. As we got closer, I could see her more clearly. Her coat was buttoned all the way up, her face expressionless. "Ma'am, the store is closed," Thomas said gently. "I need to escort you out." She turned her head slowly to look at him. "I need to return this," she said. Thomas glanced at me and I saw confusion in his eyes. "You can come back tomorrow during business hours," he said, "but right now I need you to leave." "I need to return this." Her voice never changed, never showed emotion. Thomas put his hand lightly on her elbow, trying to guide her toward the front. She didn't resist, but she didn't walk either. She just stood there, rigid, and when Thomas applied a little more pressure, she remained absolutely stationary, like she weighed 1,000 pounds. "Ma'am, please walk with me." "I need to return this." I felt my skin crawl. "Thomas, just call the cops," I said quietly. He nodded and pulled out his phone. While he made the call, I kept watching her. She never looked at me directly, but I could feel her attention. It was like standing near something predatory, something that was deciding whether to attack. The police arrived 10 minutes later, 2 officers, both calm and professional. They approached her the same way Thomas had. "Ma'am, you need to leave the store." "I need to return this." One of the officers, a woman in her 30s, exchanged a look with her partner. "Ma'am, if you don't leave voluntarily, we'll have to escort you out." "I need to return this." The officer reached for her arm. The woman in the red coat turned her head 90 degrees, looking at the officer with those dead eyes. "Don't touch me," she said. Different words, different tone. This one was low, threatening. The officer's hand stopped mid-reach. "Ma'am, we don't want any trouble." "I need to return this," the woman said, back to the flat monotone. The officers looked at each other, having a silent conversation. "We're going to need to remove you," the male officer said. They each took one of her arms. She didn't fight, didn't struggle, but as they pulled her toward the exit, she kept her eyes locked on me. "I'll be back tomorrow," she said. It sounded like a promise. They escorted her out through the front doors. I watched from inside as they walked her to the parking lot and waited while she got into an old sedan and drove away. "Weird as hell," Thomas muttered. "You okay?" I nodded, but I wasn't. The next day I worked the same shift. She came back. Same red coat, same picture frame, same dead expression. "I need to return this," she said, placing the frame on my counter. My hands were shaking. "Ma'am, we went through this yesterday. I can't process." "I need to return this." I called Thomas immediately. He came to the service desk, saw her, and his face went pale. "Call the police," he said. We did. Same 2 officers as the night before. They escorted her out again. The female officer pulled me aside before leaving. "Has she threatened you? Done anything we can arrest her for?" "No, she just stands there and repeats the same thing." "That's not illegal, unfortunately. We can remove her for trespassing, but she hasn't technically done anything criminal." "She's scaring the hell out of me." "I understand. Keep calling us if she comes back. We'll document everything." She came back the next night, and the night after that, and the night after that. Always the same time, always the same coat and picture frame, always the same words. "I need to return this." On the 5th night, I refused to work the service desk. I told Thomas I couldn't do it anymore. He assigned me to stock shelves on the other side of the store. At 10:20 p.m., I was putting away kitchenware when I felt eyes on me. I turned. She was standing at the end of the aisle, 30 feet away, holding the picture frame. "I need to return this," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the distance. I dropped the plates I was holding. They shattered on the floor. I ran to find Thomas. We called the police again. They came, removed her again. That night, after the store closed, I was walking to my car when I saw her sedan parked in the lot. She was sitting in the driver's seat, lit by the parking lot lights, staring straight ahead, holding the picture frame. I got in my car and locked the doors, hands shaking too badly to get my key in the ignition. I watched her in my rearview mirror. She never moved. I finally started my car and drove away. She didn't follow me. But when I got home and walked up to my apartment, I found something on my doormat, a picture frame, wooden, $12 from the Walmart home section. Inside the frame was a photograph of me, working at the service desk. The photo had been taken from the other side of my counter, from exactly where she always stood. I moved 2 weeks later, changed my phone number, quit my job. I haven't seen her since. But last week I started working at a Target in a different city. Last night, during my closing shift, a woman in a red coat approached my register. She was holding a picture frame. My name is Marcus, and I thought the scariest thing about working overnight at Walmart was the boredom. I'd been on the overnight stock crew for 3 months at the Supercenter off Route 9, one of those massive locations that sprawls like a small warehouse city under fluorescent lights. The pay was decent, the work was mindless, and I got to listen to podcasts while stacking shelves. Most nights the store was mine, just me, 2 other stockers, and Janet, the overnight manager who spent most of her shift in the back office doing paperwork. The store closed at 11. By midnight, the lights in half the sections would dim to save power, creating these long corridors of shadow between the brightness. I'd gotten used to it, the silence, the emptiness, the way my footsteps echoed differently in grocery versus electronics. But that changed the night Janet introduced the new facing protocol. She found me in aisle 7, restocking canned vegetables. It was around 1:30 in the morning, and I had my earbuds in, halfway through a true crime podcast about missing hikers. I didn't hear her approach until she tapped my shoulder. I jumped, nearly dropping a can of green beans. "Jesus, Janet, you scared the hell out of me." She didn't smile. Janet never really smiled, but tonight her expression was stranger than usual, tight, nervous, like she was forcing herself to maintain composure. "Corporate sent down a new protocol," she said, "for facing." Facing was the tedious process of pulling products forward on shelves so everything looked neat and full from the customer's perspective. We did it every night, section by section. "Okay," I said, pulling out my earbuds. "What's different?" She handed me a printed sheet, the paper still warm from the office printer. The header read, "Revised Facing Protocol, overnight shift only, effective immediately." I scanned the bullet points. Most of it was standard. Work systematically, ensure labels face forward, rotate stock. But near the bottom, 3 additional rules stood out. Do not face any aisle completely alone. If you hear your name called while facing, verify the source before responding. Report any products found facing backward immediately to management. "Why would products be facing backward?" I asked. Janet's jaw tightened. "Just follow the protocol, Marcus, and don't do any aisles by yourself tonight. I mean it." She walked away before I could ask anything else, her shoes squeaking against the polished floor. I looked down at the paper again. The rules felt odd, unnecessarily specific in a way that corporate directives usually weren't. They loved their vague efficiency language, not these pointed warnings. I found Tommy, the other stalker on shift, in the cereal aisle. He was 19, perpetually tired and usually high. Tonight he just looked confused. "Did Janet give you the weird facing rules?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, man, creepy as hell. Don't work alone, blah blah blah. Like, what do they think is gonna happen?" "No idea, but she seemed serious about it." "She always seems serious." Tommy pushed a box of Cheerios onto the shelf. "You wanna just team up? Knock out grocery together?" "Yeah, let's start in the back and work forward." We started in aisle 16, the baking aisle, where flour and sugar sat in neat rows under flickering lights. The store felt especially quiet tonight, the usual hum of refrigeration units muted and distant. As we worked, I kept thinking about those rules. If you hear your name called while facing, verify the source before responding. What did that even mean? We worked in silence for a while, falling into rhythm. Tommy would pull products forward on one side while I handled the other. It was boring, methodical work, and my mind drifted. That's when I heard it. Marcus. My name, spoken clearly from somewhere down the aisle. I looked up. The aisle stretched empty in both directions, fluorescent lights casting everything in sterile white. Tommy was crouched down, organizing cake mixes, his back to me. "Did you say something?" I asked. He glanced over his shoulder. "No. Why?" "I thought I heard... Never mind." He shrugged and went back to work. I tried to shake it off, but my heart was beating faster now. The voice had been distinct, not imagined. It sounded like it came from the far end of the aisle, near the paper products. I kept working, but every few seconds I'd glance up, scanning the empty aisle. 10 minutes later, it happened again. "Marcus." Closer this time, maybe 20 feet away. I spun around. Nothing, just shelves and products and that vast artificial brightness. "Tommy, did you hear that?" He stood up, frowning. "Hear what?" "Someone saying my name." "Dude, there's nobody here. It's just us and Janet." I knew he was right, but the voice had been so clear, not a whisper or a trick of acoustics, an actual voice, speaking directly to me. "Let's just finish this aisle," I said. We worked faster now, and I was hyper-aware of every sound, the buzz of lights, the distant hum of cooling systems, my own breathing. When we moved to aisle 15, I noticed it immediately. 3 soup cans facing backward, Campbell's chicken noodle, their labels pressed against the back of the shelf, red and white designs hidden. They stood out among the perfectly faced rows like missing teeth. "Tommy, look at this." He came over, stared at the backward cans. "Huh, that's weird." "The protocol said to report this to Janet." "It's just soup, man. Someone probably restocked it wrong." "Then why would corporate make a rule about it?" Tommy didn't have an answer. I took out my phone and texted Janet. "Found products facing backward in 15, 3 cans. Her response came immediately. "Don't touch them." "What aisle?" 15, I typed back. "I'm coming now." She arrived within 2 minutes, moving fast, her face pale under the fluorescent lights. She stopped when she saw the backward cans, her breath catching. "How long have these been like this?" she asked. "No idea. We just started this aisle." Janet pulled out her own phone, took a picture of the cans, then carefully, almost reverently, turned each one around so the labels faced forward. Her hands were shaking. "Did either of you touch these before I got here?" "No," I said. "Why? What's going on?" She didn't answer. She just stared at the now corrected shelf, then looked down the long aisle toward the darkened back section of the store. "I need you both to stay together tonight. Don't separate for any reason. If you find more backward products, text me immediately. Don't turn them around yourselves." "Janet, you're freaking us out. What is this about?" She finally looked at me, and I saw genuine fear in her eyes. 3 years ago, before I started here, there was an overnight stalker named David. He was doing facing alone in the back sections when the manager found him standing in aisle 22, just staring at the shelf. He wouldn't respond when they called his name, wouldn't move. They had to physically shake him to snap him out of it. "Out of what?" Tommy asked. "He said he heard someone calling his name, said he followed the voice to the back of the store, and when he got there, all the products in the entire aisle were facing backward. Every single one. He started turning them around, and while he was doing it, he felt something standing behind him, watching him. He said it felt like hours passed, but when the manager found him, only 10 minutes had gone by." My skin prickled. "What happened to him?" "He quit that night. Never came back. But before he left, he told the manager that while he was facing those products, he could see something in the reflection of the metal shelf brackets, something tall and wrong, standing right behind him. He said when he turned around, there was nothing there, but in the reflection, it never moved." The aisle suddenly felt colder. "Corporate added the protocol after 2 more overnight stalkers reported similar experiences," Janet continued. "They don't acknowledge it officially, but these rules exist in every supercenter now. We're supposed to follow them exactly." "This is insane," Tommy said. "You're telling us this place is haunted?" "I'm telling you to follow the protocol." She left us there, walking quickly back toward the front of the store. Tommy and I looked at each other. "Dude, I am not doing this," he said. "This is way above my pay grade. We need the hours. Not this bad." But we kept working, moving to aisle 14, home goods. We stayed close, neither of us willing to admit how scared we were. Around 3 a.m., I heard my name again. "Marcus." This time, Tommy heard it too. I could tell by the way he froze, the way his eyes went wide. "That wasn't Janet," he whispered. The voice had come from aisle 22, the back section where the lights were dimmed, where David had been found standing. "We should get Janet," I said. But even as I said it, I felt a pull, an urge to walk toward the voice to see what was calling me. It felt almost magnetic, like a compulsion. "Marcus, your nose is bleeding." I touched my upper lip. My fingers came away red. "We need to go. Now." We abandoned our carts and walked quickly toward the front, but as we passed the main aisle intersection, I glanced down toward aisle 22. Every product I could see was facing backward, hundreds of items, all turned around, labels hidden. The aisle looked wrong, like looking at a photograph's negative. And at the very end, barely visible in the dim light, something tall stood between the shelves. It didn't move, didn't need to. I could feel it looking at me. "Marcus, come on." Tommy grabbed my arm, pulled me away. We didn't stop until we reached Janet's office. She took one look at our faces and locked the door behind us. "You saw it," she said. Not a question. I nodded. "What do we do?" Tommy asked. "We wait for 6 a.m. Stay here. Don't go back out there." We sat in that small office for 3 hours, listening to the silence of the store. None of us spoke much. Around 4:30, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo. The image showed aisle 7, where I'd been working when Janet first found me. The photo was taken from behind me, over my shoulder, close enough that I could see the back of my head, my hands reaching for a can of green beans. But I'd been alone in that aisle. I showed Janet the phone with trembling hands. She looked at the photo for a long time, then set the phone face down on her desk. "Tomorrow night," she said quietly, "request a different shift." I never worked overnight at that Walmart again. Tommy quit the next day. Janet transferred to a different location within the week. But sometimes, late at night, I still get texts from that unknown number. Always photos, always of me, taken from angles that shouldn't be possible, taken from places where nobody was standing. The last one came 3 nights ago. It was a photo of me sleeping in my bed, taken from the foot of the mattress. In the reflection of my bedroom mirror, just barely visible, something tall stands in the corner. I never turn around to look. And those were 4 small-town Walmart horror stories. Proof that even the most ordinary places can feel unsettling, once the aisle's empty and the lights hum a little too loudly. If these stories made your next late-night Walmart run feel different, subscribe to Dark Hours for more true horror, everyday places, and small-town stories that don't feel right after dark. And tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced something strange in a Walmart late at night? Until next time, stay aware, watch the corners of empty aisles, and remember, sometimes the scariest places are the ones you visit every day.